Okay. Good evening, everyone. It is 6:03 p.m. on the last day of February 2023. It was a snow day for some of us, or those of us with kids at least. Alexis, could we have the roll call, please?
Absolutely. Steve Clockey,
Here.
Ed Halowinko,
Yo.
John Mailing,
Here.
Cheryl Brown,
Here.
Matt Pence,
Here.
Catherine Knight.
Here.
Excellent. And I believe we also have Amy Richardson. She is newly appointed to the Conservation Commission, but not yet sworn in. So she's unofficially listening in. And at the next meeting, hopefully she will be an active commissioner.
Awesome.
So
Welcome, Amy.
Aboard.
Yeah, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
Welcome, Amy. I'm going to skip the mission statement since we're running late, if that's okay. Is there anybody lined up for public comment?
No, there's no one out there.
Awesome. Then let's move on to receipt and discussion for S19-546B, 10 Willard Road.
The applicant is not here. So might I suggest that you maybe entertain a motion to shuffle the agenda to go to discussion and decision, and then return to receipt in case he arrives? Or you can just have your staff give a brief description of this modification of permit.
I'll move to alter the agenda to move on to discussion decision and come back to receipt and discussion. In a second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, moving right along. S23-613, 18 Eastwood Road.
Okay, so this is a corrective action application for landscaping and filling that occurred in a wetland and watercourse and adjacent to a wetland watercourse. Mr. Suarez, in an email, I think yesterday, asked to have discussion tabled to the next meeting. And I think I forwarded you some of that correspondence regarding the clarifications of his plan that you had asked for at your previous meeting, which would have been in January, I guess. And he is still working on providing those elements of the application. So that's that.
Okay.
Moving right along then. Unless anybody has anything they want to discuss about that or any questions. Okay. S23-614, 31 Orchard Hill Road.
This was the application where there is a proposed in-ground pool that is outside of your jurisdictional area, but the pool does trigger the design for a reserve septic system under B100A of the state health code. And that the location of the reserve septic system is within your upland review area. You received the application at your January meeting, so this is only the second meeting that you've discussed it. There was a bit of discussion at the receipt, but at the end of that meeting, I was asked to do a draft resolution for your consideration. So there is one attached in the staff memo that I sent out. Doesn't really have much. Again, hopefully this is a septic system that is never actually implemented. But it would require that if they did do any work within the upland review area, that they install adequate sedimentation erosion controls, and that all disturbance be completed within 1 month.
Does anybody have any questions about the draft resolution? If not, does somebody want to move it forward?
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum dated February 7th, 2023 for permit number S23-61431 Orchard Hill Road, as written with all conditions.
Beautiful. Any second?
I'll second.
Mailing, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Thank
Any
you.
opposed? I think that's everybody, right? So no abstentions. Okay. Good to go on that one. Easy peasy. Moving right along. S23-615, 9 Princess Pine Road.
Okay,
Corrective
so
action.
this is a corrective action landscaping application following a notice of violation for work within a wetland and adjacent to a watercourse. This application was also received at your January 24th meeting, where you had some initial comments regarding the adequacy of the planting plan, in particular the wish for more shade trees. So the applicant did submit a revised planting plan. So in addition to the plants that were on their original plan, they've added 6 shade trees that are native to Connecticut that would be 2-inch caliper size at this time of planting. The applicants are here if you have any questions for them. You can look at the revised planting plan, should be on the pending wetland applications page under 9 Princess Pine. And then I also sent you a memorandum with a draft resolution to approve if you're so inclined. It has a lot of the standard conditions, such as requiring a bond for the plants that would be held for 2 full growing seasons, defining the area that's downhill of the dwelling to the rear property line as an area that is to be maintained in its natural state, not as a lawn or landscaped manicured feature. The vegetation that was cut be allowed to grow back, including the ground vegetation, and that the area be enhanced with the planting plan that was submitted, and that the planting plan be completed within 3 months of issuance of the permit. So it would be by the end of May, if my math is right.
Alexis, do you feel that the revised landscape plan is enough for you and staff to implement and whatever?
Yeah, I think that
To verify is the word I'm looking for.
yeah, I think that is the extent, what was the question?
Well, is there enough information for you there for you guys to work off of as far as being able to verify what's been approved and what should be there and releasing of the bond someday and all that stuff?
Gotcha. Yeah, the adequacy of the depiction of the plan was actually quite good. So it has all the elements that a plan should have: the species name, the number, and the proposed size and the location.
Groovy.
Well, I would move to accept the the draft resolution supplied by staff for S23-615 9 Princess Pine Road, subject to the conditions listed therein.
Any seconds?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I
Think that's unanimous.
Great.
Right.
Well, thank you. Can I just say,
No,
what do
no,
we do
no,
now?
They can't hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Oh,
Mrs. DeLeo, please just don't waive our rules and regulations on us again. I don't think I could stand it.
Oh, sorry. I just always have them, you know, I'm trying to go by that. So do we get something official? We can't plant obviously today, but we get something that we can kind of hang on to that says we're good to go?
Yeah,
Yes, I'm going to send you a permit that includes the resolution that the commission adopted today and some other paperwork and some instructions for giving us a call when you do plant, information about the required bond, which we can talk about tomorrow or anytime this week. But and then you have what did I say, 3 months to complete the planting plan. And,
Okay.
you're all set.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
you.
right. Have a good night.
You
You too.
too.
Okay, moving on, S23-616, 761 Main Avenue. iPark.
Yeah, this is the iPark property. This application was also received at your January 24th meeting. You had some comments for the applicant and basically encouraged them to seek professional engineering and landscaping advice for the work that they wish to continue on their drainage pipe. He emailed today asking if I had a list of engineering firms because the engineer that they had been working with, I guess, does not want to complete the work. So he has also asked to table discussion until he has some kind of revised plan to bring before you. Without an
we are
extension.
requiring, right? We are requiring this. We're not,
Yes,
we're not just encouraging it, we're
Oh,
saying it
yes.
has to happen. Okay,
right. Well, it's encouraged if he wants to have an approved,
get it done this year, right?
and if he chooses not to, then I would think that the result would be application denial. But yes, you're correct.
There's an easy way and there's a hard way. Okay, well, gosh, that sure went quickly. I guess we don't have anybody for 10 Willard Road, but I'm gonna, do we have to have a motion to move forward
No,
with that or no?
you can just return to it.
Okay, so returning to where we left off originally, let's go back to S19-546B, 10 Willard Road.
All right, so this was a permit that was originally it's changed. Hold on a second. Pull up the original permit. Well, it was passed in 2019. You had a 2002 modification of the permit. This is a multifamily development that it's on the corner of, or near the corner of Westport Avenue and Willard Road. Let me just pull up a map. And if you recall on the
Not 2002, it's 2020, right?
I'm not, sorry, 2020. Long day today, sorry. Yes, it was 2022 was when it was modified. 2019 was the original permit.
Hmm.
Here we go. And so Westport Ave is at the bottom of the page. There it abuts Strawberry Hill Avenue, and then Willard Road, which is off of Westport Ave, Route 1, is its main entrance. You come in here, there's a new self-storage building that was outside of the upland review area. But this whole dashed area is the new building. And area with the dashed lines going down to the left is the wetland area. So you have a wetland and watercourse system that goes until it ends at this head wall where it's piped. So this is the resource that was being regulated. This is the existing antenna that you can see from Westport Avenue. The modification to the permit included the installation of piped culverts instead of the original bridge that was proposed for the two crossings here and here of the watercourse that allow for emergency vehicle access. The project is generally complete, and they were seeking their certificate of occupancy. In order to get a certificate of occupancy from the building department, if you have a wetland permit, you have to get my sign off first. And in order to sign off on compliance, I had him do a variety of things. A few things were site improvements that he could do currently to be in compliance with his permit. But then others, I told him he would have to file for a modification of his permit to ask for changes to his permit so that what I see out in the field is the same as what is proposed. So going back to those culverts, best way to show this, we can go through photos. The culverts were not installed at the right height, so they are slightly perched and sitting, I'd say, on top of the stream bed, and they were not buried and then backfilled with native bottom material like they were supposed to. This is generally very important for streams with finfish populations. This particular location, I don't think that there is no finfish population, and it's highly unlikely that there ever will be in this particular location because of the portions that have been piped. The other elements that he is seeking to modify is it's not too great. Let's see. Oh. The plantings out at the site, I had concerns that they were not going to last 2 full growing seasons, in particular the buffer plantings that are on the western side. This is again Strawberry Hill Road. This is the existing antenna that's out there, and the new building is here. So in the modification, he is proposing additional plants directly adjacent to the watercourse. Additionally, they're proposing additional plants within the conservation easement area. This was supposed to be a set aside where they had were not supposed to have any activity. They did remove some trees within the easement area, and so they are proposing to add some shrubs. And then additionally, they added running bamboo to this area here, which is also within your upland review area. Running bamboo is not a native plant, and it was not on his planting plan, and so I required him to amend his plan to show the bamboo planting in that location there. So those are all of the elements that are deficient. And he's seeking to have approved.
And there was okay, good. I wanted you to bring up this picture too.
That's one photo. So this was, so then the other, one of the things that we had them do, this is within this is adjacent to the dog park area. So the dog park area is just off the screen here. The trees within the dog park, as well as the trees to the immediately uphill of it, and trees to behind the photographer. These were submitted by the applicant. They did some filling in the easement area, and then they covered it all with wood chips. And so a lot of the trees look like telephone poles. So we had them remove and excavate all the fill around the base of all the trees. But then they did return the wood chips. So that was another reason why they are being required to add additional trees to the conservation easement area.
Alexis, I don't remember
Yes.
anything to do with bamboo planting when we first went around on this. That's pretty concerning, it seems to me. I mean, we have no idea. There's something on the chart about how they're going to put a root barrier in, but I don't even know what that is. And if this is in the upland review area, then it's got every chance of spreading, and it's not native. And I just don't know where it came from. Was it there before and we missed it?
Oh, no, it was planted. I think actually, I'll go back and share my,
I saw that he bought $35,000 worth of bamboo.
Shipped in a refrigerated truck from Oregon.
yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, so we were, one of our inspectors was actually out when the bamboo was being delivered and saw them on the ground, and advised the applicant not to plant the bamboo. They were concerned that it was an invasive species. But they did make this investment in a lot of bamboo and planted it.
So they did put it in, even though they were advised not to.
Yeah, I think because they had already made their $31,000 investment.
And the culverts were installed incorrectly and need to be dug up and installed correctly. Is that?
Yeah, I don't know. So he's asking, let me switch to, I'll just take you through my site photos.
But they got a CO anyway.
They did.
Can you just point out on the planting plan where the photograph was that we saw of the trees and the mulch and the picnic table and the dog park?
Yes. That's a planting plan, share screen. So the photographer is standing about this location, looking this way. So you saw the edge of the dog park fence, the edge of the photo, and then the other fence that you saw off in the distance was a split rail fence that they've put along the property line. So it was looking, standing here, looking in this direction. And then the photos that I will show are along this emergency access way, which is not completed also, so zoning is requiring an additional bond for the completion of this. It was installed. This was supposed to be a grassed, reinforced emergency egress. But it currently has no vegetation on it. I'll just,
Alexis, what resources do we have? What resources do we have to assure compliance with these deviations, from these deviations?
so you do have a sizable bond that is being held. And that's probably your biggest force of compliance. It's not a huge bond, it's a $9,365 bond.
We'll
Planning and
walk away from that. What
planning,
else?
yeah, and planning and zoning is requiring an additional $30,000 bond for the additional planting. And then with his modification request of his permit, if you can deny the requested modifications to his permit, or you can approve some of them and deny some of them. For the ones that you do approve, you can also require additional conditions or limitations or terms. So he is proposing additional plants, and if you were to eventually approve that proposed additional planting plan, I would include an additional bond for those plants.
And by the way, there's no decision happening tonight. We're just receiving this and discussing it.
Correct. Right. And so it is January and February that these photos were taken. So there is a lack of vegetation in general. There was a lot of mud. One of the immediate actions that the permittee had to do was to reinstall silt fence everywhere at the bottom of the slope of the watercourse. And the watercourse is here. So there is now silt fence everywhere, but this is the kind of condition that we're looking at. This is the dog park. This is the emergency access. This is the slope next to the watercourse. Here's one of the culverts with the stonework over it now. These are little tiny plants. So this is one of the trees that were buried. So again, this is the slope, which now has a silt fence at the bottom of it. These are some of the little plants. You can see red osier, dogwood, but not sufficient coverage. This is looking down at the apartments, emergency access. This is the bamboo. The watercourse is just beyond the emergency access. There's the bamboo sticking out again. Again, grass growing in the kind of active common areas, but they don't have any vegetation in their non-lawn areas other than the shrubs that they've planted along the edge. Just concern about the lack of depth of adequate planting substrate. Some of the previously buried trees, these have been excavated since this photo was taken. Let's have these, but more of kind of the muddy condition of things. Oops. And it's this is the bamboo area here. The other modification that he's seeking is this black fence around the antenna area is new. There's always been a chain link fence, but the fence was replaced. And when it was replaced, it was placed closer to the watercourse. In the original plans, this planted buffer area, which you can't really see the plants very well, but it's you can tell where the mulch is. It was supposed to extend all along this area here. Since they moved the fence, they did not place a buffer there. And he's seeking a modification to not have to plant along there. And I thought I had a better photo of the culvert. So here's the culvert. This is again, just you can even see the water level in it, and the substrate is below the bottom of the culvert. So that what that means is that with potential scour, you kind of have a bit of a waterfall going down.
So the water is flowing towards us in this?
It is, yes. No, I'm sorry. It is flowing away from you. This is the background of the photo is towards Strawberry Hill Avenue. So it is flowing away from you in this photograph.
Was that supposed to be concrete or was plastic in the design?
It was corrugated plastic into the design, but it was supposed to be buried. I want to say 1 foot.
So
Question.
how much higher is it than it was supposed to be?
I will look that up.
I mean, a half a foot, a foot?
I want to say, I think it was 1 foot.
That's a lot, that's a lot.
I have a question about the conservation area and the dog park area. You said that they filled the area? Was that, did we permit them to do that in the permit? Was that?
No, they were not supposed to fill within the easement area. So the easement area, I've lost track of what I'm sharing. Am I still sharing photos or a map?
Photo.
We still see the culvert.
Okay, let me, the easement area was allowed to have temporary egress for fire, vehicular emergency vehicles in that kind of plastic grid area that you saw in the photos, and that's this thing. And then there's supposed to be walking access for emergency use or recreational use here and here. So they've installed these. This is the 2022 revision of the plan that called for the culvert with the invert of the culvert 1 foot below the bottom of the existing drainage ditch. So they were supposed to look something more like storm drain. You typically have your culvert buried into the substrate so that you have continued substrate and not corrugated pipe. And again, it's more important for, it's very important for any watercourse with finfish populations. It's less important for this situation.
The point is that it's not what was approved.
Correct.
The fish are irrelevant. It was approved to be a foot down and it isn't. So, you know, that's the issue.
Yeah. So those are all the things that the applicant is seeking to modify to align the site conditions with his permit. So I'm not sure why he did not attend, but I will send him a reminder for the next meeting on March 14th.
Well, I have to say that just based on what we've seen here and what's been done, there is a reasonable chance that there's going to be scour that might not otherwise have occurred. And there is, in my view, a reasonable chance that in the review area, the bamboo could very easily spread down towards the watercourse. And the very least I would think we would want to do would be to make certain that we hang on to any deposits that we have on hand until, I don't know, a couple of years have gone by and we've had a chance to see what damage, if any, there has occurred because of their variance from the plan that we approved. I mean, how long would we be allowed to hold on to these bonds generally, assuming everything went according to plan?
So the way that your permit is written for the current bond, there's a total bond amount. A portion of it would be eligible for release once the site is stabilized and all work is complete. So I don't consider any of the sites stabilized. And then a portion would be held for at least 2 full growing seasons from the time of initial planting. But you could, with new plantings, I'd say that you could certainly hold that for at least an additional 2 full growing seasons or more. For the work within the easement area, your upland review area is this dashed line here. And though it's called a conservation easement, the easement is not to the Conservation Commission, but to the Zoning Commission. It was a construct of the zoning regulations having to do with a use. I don't know, they did a zone change amendment and allowed a something to do with the self-storage use in return for some open space. So you don't have a lot of teeth in the conservation easement area other than within your upland review area, which is about not quite half of the area.
How was that movement of the chain link fence by the tower something that would have required a permit because it intrudes into the wetlands area?
So generally we don't, it doesn't quite intrude into the wetland area. Generally we don't regulate fences unless they cross or bisect a wetland or remove if they're adjacent to the wetland, we generally don't regulate them. But what he's really seeking is the removal of the buffer in this area where the fence was moved.
The fence will be in the way of what matters to us, John.
Correct.
Okay. But I mean, it would. I wonder whether my colleagues would agree with me that it's the sense of this commission that that the applications and plans that we approved have not been followed. In fact, they have been there have been significant deviations from them, and it's a concern. And there could be ramifications of damage in the future from these deviations. I don't know if we have to make a motion because there's nothing.
No, there's nothing tonight. We're just taking it in, and I'm sure we're going to get an earful of the next meeting from the applicant as to, super important reasons why all this stuff was done. So I think at this point, just to keep things moving, unless anybody has specific questions that Alexis can answer, now's the right time to do it. Let's maybe just see what comes next meeting and
Okay,
go from there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to the agenda, approval of minutes. Who reviewed the minutes from January 24th?
I reviewed them.
I move to approve the minutes.
I got them.
Matt's got a second. Any
I'll second.
discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I,
Everybody voted that could, I think, so that's unanimous. Conservation initiatives. Alexis, is this a good time to talk about the drafts that you sent out on Friday for the homeowner letters?
Yes.
I would like to, first of all, I applaud the effort, and I think that we're taking a pretty big step here and saving a lot of people a lot of money, as well as confusion and disaccommodation. I would only say this, as a former publisher, almost no one will read a letter that's longer than 1 page. And I would boil it back to do 1 page, and the way I would boil it back would be to emphasize the positives that you have verbatim in the beginning of the letter, talking about the fact that you may have wetlands, and here's upfront suggestions on how you can deal with that, and leave out the penalty part of it, because at least in the very beginning, there's more to be gained by just pointing out, look, this is something you want to add to your list of stuff you need to do as a new homeowner. We don't have to go into a second page and tell them, and here's what we're going to do to you if you don't. You know, those are, you know, I'm glad we're doing it, and I look forward to the results of it. Those are my suggestions.
There's people reading, I can tell.
Yeah, I didn't spend enough time looking ahead of the meeting. Thank you for drafting these.
But I do agree that a one pager would be best. I do also doubt that it will be read by most. I do remain very pessimistic that it will make. I mean, I'm sure that there will be a couple property owners that that get it and will not do work because of the letter. But I do think, as I talk to people that do have violations, even after they've received the notice of violation, and I've met them at the site and I've spoken to them multiple times in the office, I'd say it's often that many homeowners with a violation still disagree that their activities are in violation and truly don't get it. I don't know how to say this nicely. But they truly feel, you know, I was just cleaning. I hear cleaning all the time, vigorous cleaning with, you know, excavators. I was just cleaning. And a true belief that none of their activities were harmful to the wetland and watercourse. I think they see it as like, oh, there are wetland regulations, but they don't actually apply to me and my property. Is what I see day in and day out. Well,
I said before that I think the letter is a good effort, and I think that it'll help somewhat. There is a way to solve this problem totally for everybody, if the will could be found to pursue it, and that is a document called a residential property condition disclosure, which is required by the Department of Consumer Protection to be provided to every prospective home buyer anywhere in the state. And in there, it would be a very simple matter to put a line that says, they will say that there already is a reference, but the reference is nowhere near as good as it needs to be. To say, are there wetlands on this property? And if, or have the owners followed up with the Conservation Commission to determine if there's some kind of language that's there, because that has to be put in every home and condo that's for sale in Norwalk or any other town in Connecticut.
I'm looking at it right now, and it's like, I don't think a lot of people who are selling actually know, right? And like, I don't know how much really anybody holds to the these sorts of documents. So I think can we start with this preemptive move?
Yeah.
And take this as a little step at a time.
Yeah, most just so you know, most property transfers occur with a mortgage, and when they do that, there's a title search, and we get a lot of traffic of title searchers asking if there are any wetlands or watercourses. So for the majority of transactions that are run through a bank, someone is asking our office, does this have wetlands or not? And that's often in the title report, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything to the people buying the house. Likewise, that disclosure on the realtor form, it's a, wetlands, yes or no. And so there's wetlands, but I don't think that that people necessarily know what that means.
I would. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know. Am I allowed to give input at this point?
Please.
I have a few thoughts, if you all don't mind. I think that's a great idea. The disclosures are great. You can kind of nip things in the bud at transfers, from the sellers and the buyers. You're right that you could have the check boxes, you can review it, people might not look at or not know those. So that really comes down to education, potentially with like the real estate groups in the area, perhaps of Fairfield County. So realtors can say like, oh, this is something we should look for, and just at least have a pep talk with our clients about to let them know. Because, I recently just bought here in Norwalk, and my realtor was like, oh, by the way, there's wetlands over there. It says there's wetlands are over there. So like, if you're talking about a fence right now, you wouldn't be able to do that. They can kind of have that conversation, because a lot of times with buyers and sellers, you visualize what you want to do. But that being said, you're hoping to at least take the first shot with sending these letters out, which is a great idea. And it's something that maybe you could do this time almost every year. If, I don't know about budget or allowance or whatnot, but it would be a constant reminder. The one letter might not do it, but if you sent it out before, people might want to get into that spring cleaning mode, get into that let's spruce up my yard mode. That might really help as well. People would see this letter come again, it would trigger it. Maybe they don't read it this year, they don't read it next year, they read it the third year, they say, oh wow, eventually you might get the impact that you're looking for. Otherwise, I'm willing to make some edits to this letter too. I see I might rearrange some of the bullets and take things out of bullets to really make a point. You might want to bullet information, and like the line about being helpful to you, that the conservation office can come to the property at no charge. I might take that out and either put that in the beginning or at the end. Some things like that, just to tweak how the language is delivered, so it's not all lost just in the page and a half in the bullet form. So once I'm sworn in, I can help make some draft change edits if anyone would be interested in seeing that. I do write quite a lot of public informational form letters in my day job. So those are just my first few thoughts, and I'm willing to take any criticism that anyone has.
I don't think she needs to be signed in to do, or sworn in to do that, does she, Alexis? You're muted.
For pending applications, yes, but for conservation business, I think you can
Okay.
have a
I'm
discussion.
hoping to do it this week. I've been having trouble trying to make an appointment, and then there was the snow today. I was like, oh, I'll make sure I get it done before the meeting today. Then there was the snow, and we had to wait for the plow with our particulars of our driveway. It's on the short list, I promise.
Nature is unruly.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. It's one of the best ways that you can do it. You can advocate on your website. You could even, use socials or whatnot but I think that this time of year is the best time to try to get people's attention.
Yeah.
Rather than, middle of summer or say October when people are going to wind down.
Yeah.
Alexis says, does Amy know about the history of this conversation?
No.
No? Okay, so we have talked about this for a while. We've talked about getting an article in the Hour, the local newspaper, which Alexis has done in the past. There's also, the online media like Nancy on Norwalk that people read in town. Yeah, we are all ears, and especially completely interested in someone who's willing to put the effort into pushing that along, because so far we've mostly relied on Alexis, as we do for most things. Bless her heart. So I'll just speak for myself and say I welcome that energy and effort and the ideas and the expertise all equally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm with
I'd
you,
love
Beth.
to.
For what it's worth, I think it's good that we put something out there that shows that we do our part to try and inform the people who need to know. And then when people come before us, can't be surprised, guys,
Right, exactly. You put the word out there. And, I, as a resident of Norwalk, I rely pretty heavily on the socials and whatnot. I learned about Trash Day or when Trash Day is moved or weather events. I really enjoy seeing that come across the feed. So that's one way to at least reach some people. Plus, letters or whatnot. And then, there's the question of, do you send the letter? It looks pretty official in the envelope, or do you send the postcard? I don't know if there's any statistics or, a history of how things have been better received or not. Just thinking about the vehicle to maybe make an impact. But we could probably move some of these bullets around and call out some language, maybe bold some stuff that would really, pop out to people. We have, kind of definitions and examples scattered about too. So we could rearrange it that maybe would be more visually digestible for people to understand, like, oh, that's what I have that. Okay.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Alexis. Should we move on to comments of staff? Does anybody have any other conservation initiatives?
I do have one.
Okay,
I do
sorry.
have one. I'm sorry to say. Well, not sorry, but I had emailed Alexis because I had come across the Greenwich Conservation Commission has done an open space plan, which was a really interesting read and a really comprehensive and thought-provoking document that they put together on open space in Greenwich. And it was just interesting, some of the statistics that they pulled up from Yukon, and I looked at what Norwalk looked at in terms of open space, and it has diminished from 2002 to 2015, I think, was the data sets that they had. And so I emailed Alexis to find out if Norwalk had anything, and she sent me a draft of what had been put together in 2005 as maybe a starting point and something to raise in the meeting, that maybe, especially in light of some of the climate change and the climate resiliency projects, that it might be interesting for us to revisit that and to look at the open space plan for Norwalk.
Yeah, so I can share with all of you the 2005 draft open space plan that the Conservation Commission at the time did. I think Ed, you were here then, but I think everyone else missed the fun. At that time, there had been an open space task force, and then the commission worked on an open space plan for like a year and a half. And then there was an administration change, and the mayor at the time and the council at the time did not want the city to adopt an open space plan, did not like the proactive nature of the plan. And it was kind of tossed aside, but it still exists, and Norwalk still does not have a proactive open space plan, nor do we have a natural resources inventory. And these are both things that have long been on my to-do list. So I can send you that 2005 draft, and then I can send you the Greenwich plan that that Catherine mentioned. The Greenwich used to have a separate inland wetland agency department, and then a separate conservation department. So they had a conservation director, and they still have 3 or 4 conservation only staff that don't do inland wetland regulatory stuff, just do conservation initiatives, which is just dreamy. So they're just so you know, they've got like a lot of me's. But it's definitely not something that's out of reach, I think, with some help. So I'll send those off.
Thanks, Catherine. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna move on then to comments of staff. Alexis?
No, it said if anyone has specific comments on the I heard both John and Amy, but if you have anything specific, just send me an email back, and I will continue to work on the letter. We continue to have more violations. I think I issued 3 between this week and last week, and this week just started. But yeah, that's it for now, I think.
Okay. Comments of commissioners?
A quick question for Alexis. Speaking of open space and the budget, do you know, are we getting the usual, I think it's 25,000 from the city this year? Is that in the budget submittal?
It was it did make it past the first review by the Planning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission now, I should say, reviews all capital budget requests just as far as is it in line with the plan of conservation and development. And then the city's CFO makes his recommended capital budget, which I'm checking now, scrolling as we go.
That's where the money comes from, the capital budget?
Yes, the open space plan is funded by the capital budget, which is kind of a strange way to do it, but park maintenance, space fund. Hold on. Columns, request, recommend. So the CFO did not recommend the, it's listed under a capital budget item under the Recreation and Parks Department, not conservation. It's been like that since Richard Moshe was mayor. It was a $50,000 request, and it is currently not recommended by the CFO.
Oh, it's cut.
Yes. So there is a there is a capital budget process, including opportunity for public comment. Um, starting in April. Sorry.
Would it, I don't know how the fellow commissioners feel, but would it help if we write a letter asking for it to be restored? I mean, you know, that's the only way this open space fund has been funded from what I understand. And it's not a whole lot of money really, but you can't stop the funding of it because at some point in time we may need it. So I think it's important. I mean, you lose it this year, who knows what'll happen next year?
Yeah, I mean, I'd support that. I can't lead it, but I would be behind it.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good idea.
All right, I don't mind writing drafting the letter and I can send it to you, Alexis, and maybe we'll talk about it next meeting if you guys are okay with it.
That'd be great.
Great.
Does that make sense, Alexis? Is that gonna?
Yes. Yeah, if you wanna, you can, you know, do a draft, or we can meet next week or do a phone call next week and go from there.
And remind me, so it's 50, not 25, was it annually? It's
It is 50-50.
Okay.
So in some years it was, the request was 50 and 25 was funded.
And so this is the first year that they're choosing not to, or they're suggesting not to fund?
No, they have had a variable decisions in the past. I'd have to pull up the my open space fund sheet.
Yeah, you sent us a good on the past with the history, so.
Yeah, I don't have that off the top of my head, but it's kind of been fits and starts. It really depends on what the general economics of the city and if the city is feeling pinched or not.
Okay.
It's probably a tough question for you to answer, Alexis, but do you feel like you have adequate support in the operating budget?
Yeah, generally, yeah. Could the city invest in more environmental focused staff? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
The fact of the matter is, if it comes out
I
of the
don't know how to
operating
answer-
budget,
I
it's
don't know how to
supported by
answer the
all the
question.
taxpayers. If it
What's
comes
that?
out of the capital budget, you're paying interest on it, you're borrowing the money.
But her Alexis's team comes out of the operating budget. Those are the resources she has. So that's, open space. Yeah. Okay. Capital. But I mean,
Right.
she's gotta live
Right. So all the staff, all the staff and kind of daily operating expenses. So like the postage and office supplies, car and fuel, that comes from the operating budget. Whereas the large improvements are funded by the capital fund. So yeah, it could definitely be better. I do think that there with my dual role as being the assistant director of planning and zoning, there's new opportunities for kind of a pervasiveness of environmental focus that is in the past didn't exist in the city, if that makes sense. So there's still definitely a strain on kind of this a designated environmentally focused staff. There's not a lot of depth here. but because of the way that departments and personnel are situated, there is more kind of meshing,
Integration.
thank you, Steve, of environmental action. So I think that there's a lot more kind of sustainability, resilience, looking at how we manage flood and sea level rise, kind of looking at everything through an environmental lens. There's more of that. So I just didn't want to end on my usual Debbie Downer note.
I mean, Alexis, you used to have Brenda, right? We used to have Brenda, right?
Right.
She drove around and looked for violations and stuff. I mean, was that ever filled, or we just doing things differently? I mean, when I hear violations, it's always, we're not finding them, neighbors are reporting them, right? I mean, do we have enough out there?
So Brenda's before in the past, conservation was a subdivision of planning and zoning, but we were physically separate. And so there was myself, and then there was, since 2000 so prior to 2009, it was just a one-person office. And then after 2009, we hired we formed a new position called the Environmental Compliance Officer. And so that was a full-time compliance staff that did inspections for just inland wetlands and aquifer. And now that we're physically with planning and zoning, we have, there had been a zoning staff called the zoning inspector that did all zoning inspections. And then there was the environmental compliance officer that did all my inspections. We now have 2 land use technicians that we try to cross-train to do everything. So we still have 2 people. We still have the same zoning, conservation, and aquifer, but we're using both of them. We're down to just 1 at the moment, and we're waiting to fill 1 because we have a vacancy. So we definitely have there's a dip right now because we are down 1 staff, 1 of those land use techs. But the one that we still have just received, I'm going to have her actually come to maybe to the next meeting. She just completed the deep inland wetland and watercourse training program. So she can be a designated agent of yours, and that's what I would recommend. She comes out with me, so she's still she's very good, but she's just still learning. So she and I do a lot of inspections together to get a handle on it, and just get more practice. But she will move towards doing more of what Brenda did over time, especially once we have a second land use tech that can take care of some of those zoning issues.
Good to know. Want to make sure you have enough help there. I know I know you have your hands full all the time.
Yeah, no, I'd say that this is a very tight office where everybody has more than enough work to do. Guarantee that.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Alexis. I want to backpedal a little bit. Catherine, did we move on too quickly past the open space plan? I mean, I think we kind of fell into our typical, not rub, but Alexis said she, would do something, and we just got done talking about how she has too much to do and generally not enough people. Is there more that you are interested in doing with regard to digging into the open space plan and getting something shaken loose there?
Yeah, I didn't know if there is appetite for the commission to revisit it or see what we could do to redevelop or redocument kind of an open space plan.
Alexis, dare I bring up the list of 92 open space parcels that the city had identified years ago And there were really only 3 or 4 of them that were more than an acre. It was cemeteries, schoolyards, it was every kind of open space you could imagine, and they were all,
Yes.
and they exist somewhere. Electronically, I don't know, but it might be a good starting point.
Yeah, so I do have, and Catherine, I can't remember what I sent you, if I just sent you the draft plan or if I sent you the inventory list or not, but I
There
looked for
was an
the-
inventory.
Okay,
I think it was existing open space, not prospective.
not perspective. Okay, but I think it included both, I'll send out the list to everyone too. So the part of the 2005 effort was to finally make an inventory of open space. It has been sporadically updated. I've not been the best at updating it. So that's definitely something that the commission can work out. We can kind of divvy up areas of town. It includes both, you can divide the list of properties multiple ways. One way that one of the columns is protected or unprotected. And so protected open space is open space that has some kind of deed restriction. It's a park. It was bought through, a program that requires a perpetual easement. Then there are other city properties or private properties that feel like open space, but they're not protected. So it does include every property that the commission in 2005 felt had attributes for open space. So that includes private, unprotected lands. I'll send that as well. And so when you look at the plan, I think it's a matter of determining, is this something that the commission and their staff person can complete? Or is it something that we should be for the next capital budget season asking for requesting funds to hire a consultant to help us put it all together and make it a visually exciting and up-to-date document? So that's really the question. Is this something that the commission can lift, or is it something that I should put on the capital budget request for next year? I'll send it to you and add it for discussion at the next meeting.
And Catherine, I dug up an email from 2021 where we talked about this, and there's a couple of useful attachments I'll forward to you and Amy. I'll CC you, Alexis, and everybody else was on it. Or I can forward it to everybody again if you wanted at the top of your inbox. With just the open space fund, the actual dollars, and then the Norwalk draft open space guidelines from 2007, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
So if that's helpful, just to keep it going. I'm definitely interested, like I said, about the letter about the budget. I don't have a lot of bandwidth to lead the charge, but I definitely support it. Others, I don't know. Yes, no. Okay.
Draft it up and share it with Alexis and share it with you guys, and shouldn't be too much. So don't like to see that taken out of the budget. I really just don't.
Well, and what if, if we have to, if we can get some money? I've heard 3 different uses discussed in the past 15 minutes, which is staff, operational stuff, maybe even, money toward mailings, with regard to notifying people that they've got, wetlands on their properties. There's the just putting more into the kitty for the open space fund for future use. Then there's supporting an actual study about open space as well. So, I mean, anybody have thoughts or feelings on like what is the most important to you? Because, if we're going to be asking, we want to ask it for what is most important to us, right?
So, yeah, those are two different budgets and two
Those are
different
different
timelines.
Operational
So
and
the-
capital, right?
Yeah, just to clarify.
Right, so the capital, where would supporting the open space fund come from? Operational or
That's a capital budget.
capital? Okay, so to break it down simply then, if we're just talking about the capital budget, there's money to go into the open space fund, or there's potentially money to go toward an open space study? Or can it all be the same money?
It would, no, I think that, so the request period is in the past.
Right,
And so we're now moving into the review. So the open space funding was a request, but it is no longer recommended by the CFO. So I think that during the public comment period, the commission can provide reasons to the Board of Estimate why it should be, the request should be reconsidered. The funding for an open space plan would have to be at the next capital budget cycle.
okay, so it's not a choice in either or, it's a now and then. You know,
Yes.
now we want to make comments in April that say, listen, we need to keep putting money into this fund.
Right.
Then next time, you obviously know when ears start opening up around there about, asking for money. So that's when we can, maybe Catherine, I'm not delegating or anything, but since you brought it up, that would be the time where we would start to build a case to ask for money to support that. Or, and in the meantime, it could be, we've done our homework to say, we've identified our shortcomings and what we weren't able to do and what we need a professional to do for us. Here's some information. We could really springboard off of that to something really great if we had a little induction of cash to hire someone to take it to the next level. Does that make sense?
Catherine, there's at one point several years ago, the land trust made an effort to identify parcels of space that it ought to pursue. And I don't know where that, I know it didn't add up to anything. I mean, but an effort was made and there might be a file. And my guess is that Peggy Holton is probably the best source of whether that exists or whatever. It might be worth just asking her. And Alexis, I want to know, what does the POCD say about open space in Norwalk? I ought to have it memorized, but I don't.
I mean, the PODC is basically supportive of open space acquisition and continued maintenance. So, and that's why the request was approved by planning and zoning, because they had just looked for how is this linked to the PODC? They found it in the PODC and continued it on.
Well, one of our governors several years ago said that there ought to be a target of 21% of the state of Connecticut should be open space. And at the time, somebody did some sort of analysis and Norwalk was under 10%. I mean, obviously, it's a 350-year-old city and, people are building on top of stuff that was built on before, but still, that's a big gap.
And it's gone negative. So, I mean, it's gone, there's been more development than there has been. Open space has decreased.
Yep.
Okay.
One other question for you, Alexis, though, if we decided next year that we wanted to do a study, we have the authority to use our open space fund to do a study, correct? Or is there restrictions?
There's limitations on that, Matt.
I'd have to look up the. Oh, look at questions today.
We can wait, don't worry.
If we wanted to spend the open space fund on doing a study, we'd have to get the common council to approve it.
Yes, you would. So I'd have to read the city code for the open space
It's not imperative.
fund. And I think I don't remember it. having a provision. So permitted use of funds is for the acquisition of real property, payment of acquisition related costs such as title searches, appraisal surveys, contributing to the cost of land acquisitions by not-for-profit organizations such as the Land Trust, and payment of costs required to transform properties that are not considered open space to open space. So like environmental remediation, and those are the 4 allowed uses of the fund. So the answer would be no. So it's, I mean, just for the scale this year, there were, oh no, this is last year for 2023, there were a total departmental, so not including the Board of Education, which is always more than half, total of departmental requests for the current budget year of 55.2 millions. The CFO recommended 38.7 million. And at the end of the day, the total approved was 34.8 million. And I know that the CFO's suggested capital budget was half the amount of the total requests. So I think that the total, including city departments and Board of Ed, was over 60,000. Of course, now I can't find it. And his recommended budget was about 30,000. But it never hurts to ask. Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Then let's adjourn. Motion? Anybody?
So
I'll
moved.
move. John's got it, Matt's got a second, all in favor? Aye. All right, have a nice night, folks. Nice to see you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Nice to meet everyone.
You too, Amy. Talk to you soon.